Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Home Depot Guitar Kit Challenge, where myself and BigDGuitars are building these Solo Music Gear SG style guitar kits. We're using only hand tools and products available at your average Home Depot, Walmart, or your standard kind of hardware store. If you haven't seen the prior videos in this series, go check them out. What we've done so far is get this thing sanded and ready to go, glue up the neck so it's nice and sturdy, and we've done all our fretwork using exclusively, like I said, hand tools from Home Depot and Walmart. Pretty good so far. Yeah, so far I am extraordinarily happy with the fretwork on this thing and how it all feels and looks. In this episode, what we're going to do is get it all wired up. So the only exception to the hand tools only and Home Depot and whatnot only rule is soldering irons, because obviously you don't have a soldering iron that isn't a power tool. You have to plug it in to get it hot. And we've all got soldering irons when we're doing these things. So a soldering iron or soldering station is an important part of guitar work, and having a decent one is going to be good for you. I'm going to be using my Weller soldering station in this video because we're going to get this thing wired up. We're going to get all the stock hardware in place and we're going to test it out. Then in the next video, we're going to do the part that you're probably waiting for. I know I am, and that's going to be the finishing. If you want one of these guitar kits, check out the Solo Music Gear link in the description. That's my affiliate link, so you can buy it through there and it helps me out. If you don't want to help me out, as always, just go to solomusicgear.com, buy it through there without using my link, and it will do me no good whatsoever. If you want the soldering station that I'm using, it's a Weller. I really like it. I've used a few different ones, and this one's my favorite so far. Standard analog, nothing fancy, and at a reasonable price. You can check that out in the Amazon link in the description, along with a bunch of the other crap that I use on a day-to-day basis for this work. All right, that's probably enough chit-chat. We're gonna bring you in closer here and get to work assembling this, and we'll do the rest in voiceover. However, I did have one very clever individual ask me what hardware store I got my Hosco neck rest for that I was resting the guitar on to do my fretwork. Fair enough. Obviously, this is from Solo Music Gear, where I get all of my luthier tools pretty much. So I'm switching to a piece of fence board, fence post that I cut into this V shape using a handsaw from Home Depot, which is currently hanging on my wall. So thanks for that. Yeah, I had nothing better to do. Yeah, sweet. Okay, so we're gonna use this, and I'm gonna put some shop towel in here to protect the neck. Satisfied? All right, that was a little bit petty of me. I'm just joking. Anyway, let's bring you in closer and get to work on getting this thing wired up and ready to go. For starters, we need to make sure that we don't forget about this little black wire here that comes with the kit. This is the ground cable, and you're going to ground your tailpiece or bridge with this. The kit's set up so that you ground your tailpiece by putting the wire through a little hole there right into the control cavity once you've stripped both sides. You leave part of the stripped wire in the hole where the post goes, and then you go ahead and jam the post in there to hold it in place, and there you go. You got your bridge ready to go, grounded, so that when you attach the other end to a ground hookup on one of your pots, you'll have the guitar properly grounded from this end. Now you can go ahead and put in all 4 of those threaded inserts. You can shove them down as far as you want by hand and then tap them in with a hammer and a soft piece of something. You can either use a mallet or just use a soft piece of wood like I've got here, just a piece of fence board from Home Depot that I'm using to ensure that I don't mangle the top of that threaded insert with the hammer. You don't want to bend it or anything, otherwise the post probably won't thread in properly. Next up come the pickups. Always start with the neck pickup in this situation, because the neck pickup wire actually has to go through the bridge pickup cavity in order to get into the control cavity. So you don't want the bridge pickup in the way when you do that. You can easily tell which direction the pickup goes in, because one end of the pickup surround is going to be thicker than the other. That goes towards the bridge. Remember, we have an angled headstock instrument here. There's a small piece of pick guard that goes between the pickup and the neck on this model. So, you know, that's just kind of an aesthetic piece that looks good and prevents you from having that weird break in the look, the appearance between the top and where the neck glues in. So that looks pretty good. You can just throw that in there first to make sure that you've got your bridge pickup positioned properly, and it makes it really easy to get the proper spacing and everything and go ahead and put in your pickup. Now, ideally what you want to be doing here is pre-drilling all of these holes really small, doing a little pilot hole with your drill. A drill is a power tool and thus goes against the rules of the contest as I've set them out, so I couldn't do that. I have to push down really hard on the screws and be very careful about putting them in. when you go to do it, make some pilot holes. It'll make your life easier, make putting the screws in easier, and prevent you from having that added risk of pulling up some wood when you're trying to screw them in. Next up, I put that bridge pickup in place, and then I use the pick guard as my spacer here to make sure that everything is set up the way it should be. You can also ensure that your pickups are centered on the neck. You should do that. I took a quick look and definitely kind of eyeballed it to make sure everything looked like it was in the right lineup, but there's only really one way that these fit on here with the pick guard, and the spacing is pretty tight, so I didn't have to worry about that too much. It's all set up properly just by virtue of the fact that it all kind of fits together like a puzzle here. So you go ahead and install the pick guard, make sure you got it pinned down in at least a couple places before you screw in that pickup surround, or go ahead and just put it in all the way like I'm doing. Again, pilot holes are a good idea, not just for the pick guard, also for the pickup surrounds and pretty much anything else. When you're going to be putting a screw into wood, a pilot hole is always a good idea to prevent you from having those risks that we talked about. Luckily, I managed to get through this without any problems. This wood isn't insanely hard, so it wasn't too hard to kind of push the screw down a little bit and make a nice little dent to give it some grip, and then continue to put substantial pressure on it as I screw it in there to make sure that I don't have any tear out problems. So that's our pickups in place now. Be careful when you do this to make sure that you have the right one in the right spot. The colors aren't always going to be the same. My neck pickup is yellow and my bridge is red. That's commonly the case, but not always. Next up, I install the switch here. I just put it through from the back, make sure that it switches vertically. Doesn't matter which direction, we'll deal with that after. Then you put on the little plate that tells you what's rhythm and what's treble, followed by your washer and then your nut. Put that on, and I'm just going to use a wrench from the hardware store to tighten it down. Now that's in place. And I'm going to get all of my stuff in place before I actually start wiring anything, because the access on this guitar is so easy. It all goes in right through this control cavity. So next up, I put my volume and tone controls in. Keep in mind your tone controls are the ones with the capacitors on them. So in this case, the little green drop style capacitors, and the volume controls are the ones that don't have that. Very straightforward, pretty simple stuff. So you put those in from the back as well. You drop your washer on there first, and then you go ahead and put the nut on to secure it in place. You can put it on hand tight to begin with, and then go in and tighten it down. Now again, I'm using a cheap wrench that I got from the hardware store for this. StewMac does sell a tool for this. Plot twist, it's just a socket. So it's a normal socket, but slightly more expensive because it's from StewMac and has a nice handle on it. So I generally use a socket set when I'm doing this, a normal socket set. But in this case, you know, the socket set's from the automotive store, not the normal hardware store. So here I am with the wrench. Next up, I'm going to put in my output jack. Again, just put it in from the back. The washer goes on first, then the nut, hand tight, and then crank it down a little bit with the wrench. Don't go too crazy when you're cranking this stuff down. It's not going anywhere, and you really don't want to cause, you know, a dent in the top of your wood or in your finish if you've got that part done. Now for the soldering iron, my one power tool here, you tin it, clean it off on your wet sponge, and then tin it again. That'll make things easier, and then when you hold it against the piece that you are soldering to, you'll notice the tin come off of the soldering iron and kind of melt onto that piece. That's how you know it's ready, and then you can just add some solder. Now this switch is set up with 3 lugs in the middle and 1 off to the side. The one off to the side is a ground, so all the bare wires are going to go to that one, and that is going to run right to your output jack along with the middle hot. Now the one at the bottom that I'm working on there, that's the neck, because when the switch is up, that's going to be activated. And the other one is the bridge. So I'm finishing that off right now. It's really pretty straightforward because these wires all come attached together. You can trace those wires back to the pots by color for confirmation, and the neck volume pot should be the top one. That bridge one is going to be the one closest to the bottom of the guitar. So my next step here, I'm just going to wire up the output jack straight from that switch. Pretty straightforward. The sleeve, you can see the one that's connected to the sleeve, that's always going to be your ground. And then the one that runs underneath is connected to the tip. That is your hot. So put your bare cable to the ground and your hot wire to the hot, and you should be good to go. You'll have power. I'm twisting the bare ground from my neck pickup right onto the bridge ground that I put through earlier, and I'm going to ground those out together just on the grounded lug that's attached to the back of the pot, and then I hook up the hot to the other bare lug that's sitting there. Similarly, I ground my bridge pickup wires to the back of the volume pot for the bridge, and I twist the hot together with the hot coming off of the switch and wire those together to the one remaining lug, because the third lug has the capacitor on it, so you don't have to worry about getting confused there. Just go ahead and wire it up, put the back on. There are so many cables in here right now, and you're definitely going to want to trim those down and make things a little cleaner, but for the purposes of doing this test run, I'm putting it all together the way that it comes straight out of the box. That also means there will be plenty of extra wire in case we ever need to do something more interesting to this. I put my strap button right on the back of the horn there. That's where I prefer it on this type of guitar. Not everybody does. Some put them in the middle, but that's where I like them. I find that that gives it a better balance and keeps the head up a little nicer, at least when I play it. Then the other one, of course, goes centered right on the bottom. And it's time to kind of flip this thing over and get the remaining pieces in place here. So I put my bridge posts in. I put them fairly low here, and then I put my stop tail posts in all the way. I almost always put the stop tail posts in all the way. I don't really have any reason not to. Just press fit on the knobs, and this is starting to look like a guitar now. The SG tuners have a little interesting washer that comes with them. You put the wide side down when you use it so it doesn't look like a plate or something sitting on top. And then, as per the usual, go ahead and tighten that up by hand, and you can go in with a little wrench after or a socket to tighten up further. You'll notice that, or you may not notice, that I'm putting the tuning pegs all completely vertical when I do this. So once I get them put in, I turn the peg vertical. The reason I do that is it gives me a better visual line to be able to line them up and make sure that they're all equidistant, even, and coming out of the headstock perpendicularly, so I don't end up with them sitting at weird angles when I go to tighten them down. You want them tightened down in the right position, because then you can go in and put a tiny screw in the back that's going to hold it in place and straight. The thing is, once you get that screw in, you don't want to have to do it again. That would require you to take it out, fill the hole, sand flat, and have another go at it. So that is definitely something that we want to avoid if we can. So I get these all in there nice and straight, visually straight. They look good. I get them tightened up. And then it's time to flip this thing over and put these screws in. This, above almost all else, is where a pilot hole is very useful. These screws are always terrible. They're tiny and they're really easy to strip. So be very careful when you put them in, and please drill a tiny pilot hole first. The same essentially goes for the truss rod cover. A pilot hole would be very helpful here. What I'm doing is I'm just pushing the screws in with my hand as hard as I can to make a little dent, and then I go ahead and put them in with the screwdriver. And luckily these are better screws. They're slightly wider. They hold the screwdriver head better, so they're less likely to strip. But really, a pilot hole would be nice here. Just mark your bit off so that you make sure you don't drill too far, and go ahead and do a tiny little pilot hole, and these things will slide in nice and smooth. We are almost done here now. We just drop the bridge into place, pop the tailpiece in, and it is time to get this thing strung up. That is essentially it. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me string the guitar up in normal speed here. We're going to bump it up to 400 times, and well, I like to put the 2 E strings on first, so I make sure I've kind of got equal tension to the extent possible on either side of the fretboard. I would normally use a little tool to help me tune the pegs or turn the pegs faster to get this done, but of course, you can't get one of those at Home Depot or Walmart usually, so at least not the Walmart that I have around my town, so I'm doing them by hand. Yep, that's about enough complaining out of me for now, I think. But anyway, we get this guy strung up. Only takes a few minutes to do it anyway. It's pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, the only way to tell the difference between the strings that come with these kits, which is what I've got on here, is to actually look at them closely and make sure that you're putting the thinner one at the bottom and so on. So take a close look at them next to each other, compare them, and make sure you got the right one in the right place. Leave a little bit of slack on them when you tighten them up. These are not locking tuners, so you need to get a couple winds on there for a little bit extra stability. And as we all know, you're going to have to let this sit for a couple days as the neck kind of acquaints itself with having strings there. It's new, remember, it hasn't been strung up before, it hasn't been built, so it's going to take some adjustment. At the beginning, the tuning stability will be terrible. You know what isn't terrible, though? This kit. It actually looks really nice. I'm very happy with how it's looking so far. I'm really excited to get the finish on it, and generally the fit and finish of the wood portion of it and the parts and everything, pretty darn good. I actually don't mind the hardware either. Generally everything looks pretty good, fits really nice, and you know what? This thing's about done. It's looking pretty good. I'm happy with it. You know, when I was young, I kind of wanted to play the guitar really bad, and here we are a few years later, and that's exactly what I do. I play the guitar really bad. So now's time for us to move on to the demo. Try to enjoy it. Well, guys, to put it simply, I am very happy with that. Yes, it needs a setup for sure, but you know, it's actually not bad. The action's a little bit high. It desperately needs some intonation work done. That's my fault, but I will actually do that once I finish the guitar. Now I'm going to go take it all apart again so I can do the finishing work on it. But it sounds pretty good. Like those pickups are actually pretty nice. I'm going to peel the plastic off them when I get this thing done for real. I'm going to set it up properly. I'm going to intonate it properly. I'm really excited about it. The tuning stability is a bit of an issue. I'm not sure how much better it's going to get. I assume it will get substantially better for two reasons. One, these are literally the crap strings that came with the kit. You will never actually use these. Get some real strings, get some decent strings to play with when you're doing this for real. This was just for test purposes, so you'll have better stability with decent strings. And two, I put them on yesterday. What do you expect, really? I put them on yesterday. The neck is still adjusting a little bit. You know, it takes a few days for this stuff to, you know, fully solidify, for the neck to really acclimate to having strings on it and everything. I had no choice. This needed to be filmed tonight. So I put those on yesterday. I didn't stretch them properly. I did a little bit, but I didn't really have time to do it properly. Again, all my fault. So what I'm saying is, I think the tuning stability will probably actually be not too bad. I would like better tuners, but really, I think this thing will be perfectly playable and have reasonable stability when all is said and done, when it's set up properly, when it has decent strings, when it's been stretched properly and all of that. It's just not at that stage right now. So it was probably noticeably out of tune. But anyway, really happy with how it sounds. Really excited to finish it off. What do you guys think? Did you like it? Do you like the pickups? What do you think of that? I mean, they're just cheap kit pickups, but I actually thought they sounded really good, especially considering I was the one playing it, which is never a good thing. And also, I was recording directly into Premiere Pro. I just listened to it. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So there we go. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. I'm really happy with it so far. Can't wait to get it finished. That is the clincher. I know Big D can do all of what I've done so far with no problem. So this is the part where I'm really going to, you know, leave him in my dust. Once again, don't forget to check out the BigDGuitars channel in the description below. Check out the link. Go see his version of this. We're doing a contest here, so you got to let me know who you think did better, right? You got to see both to be able to do that. If you want this guitar, check out the link below to solomusicgears.com. They provided this guitar. They basically, I guess, sponsored this contest in a sense. In fact, I even got this amp from them, the Boss Katana here. They've got a bunch of varieties of those too. So check out the link in the description if you want those. Or of course, once again, if you don't want to help me out, go over to solomusicgear.com without using the link in the description and take a look. There's lots of cool stuff there. As always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to tune in for the next one because we are going to take this thing apart and do the fun part, the finishing. So on that note, better subscribe so you can see that one. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Ooh, way to go with the awkward finish there. All right, that's enough.